It's time for Twig, This Week in Google, episode 65. Steve Jobs says Windows is open? I don't think so. Let's find out what open really is and a whole lot more. This Week in Google is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for This Week in Google is provided by Cachefly. Cachefly.com. You'll find all the TWiT shows on your Roku box, Android, and BlackBerry phones, and all Yahoo Widget TVs powered by Mediafly. For more information, visit twit.tv/Mediafly. This is Twig, This Week in Google, episode 65, recorded October 20th, 2010, the Facebook Condom. This Week in Google is brought to you by Carbonite. Backing up the files on your PC or Mac is safe and easy with Carbonite. For a free trial plus 2 free months with purchase, go to carbonite.com, offer code TWiT. And by Ford and the new Ford Fiesta. With an EPA estimated 40 highway miles per gallon, no other compact car is more fuel efficient. And fuel economy is just for starters. The 2011 Ford Fiesta. Ford invites you to drive one at a dealer near you. It's time for Twig, This Week in Google, the show that covers Google and the cloud. And she's back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad to have her back. Gina Trapani of smarterware.org and Smart Company and all that. Smart Company. Fast Company and Smart Company.
It's great to be here. Great to be back from my offline vacation. There's actually a world out there, you guys.
What?
Like off the internet.
No.
It's crazy.
No,
I have pictures. I swear. It's crazy.
Well, if I can get my Google car to drive there, I'll go.
Okay. Okay.
Only if my Google car will go there. Also here, Jeff Jarvis with BuzzMachine.com, and he's a professor at CUNY, and or CUNY, as they say, and the author of What Would Google Do? Just the three of us today, which makes it nice and easy. We just got off Steve Jobs' surprisingly, actually, elaborate presentation. They announced new MacBook Airs. But more importantly, and I'd be curious what you guys thought about this, announced a app store for OS X, which will be available when Lion comes out in the summer of 2011.
Ms. Developer?
Sorry, Jeff.
No, I was asking you.
My first reaction was, oh God, like if they're gonna turn the MacBook Pro, which is my machine, they're gonna take the laptops and make them into iPads, which means they're gonna be the gatekeeper, and I'm gonna have to ask Apple's permission every time I install something, which is not the case, right? Steve made a point of saying that the App Store is gonna be one way to buy apps, the best way, Apple will believe, but it's not gonna be like the iPad where you can only get apps that way. But I just felt myself kind of full of dread. I think there's this like dichotomy with OS X. There's this appeal to the consumer. It's so easy and so pretty. It's just, you don't have to think. But then there's this appeal to geeks. I mean, the reason why the Mac is my development machine is because I can fire up a terminal and have all the Unix tools, available to me. It's a power user's machine. And so when I hear about things like the App Store, it makes me nervous. I think, they're dumbing down this operating system, this machine that I really love.
And in some ways, it's a response, isn't it? It's a response. It's almost as if we see this every time. We saw it on Twitter, Facebook, every kind of time the geeks have something, AOL even, then the real people come along and they ruin it.
It's like the Nehru jacket.
Yeah, we had that for a while, you and me, didn't we?
My parents wouldn't let me.
And then everybody's wearing polyester with flower prints on it, and it's ruined. Is that what's happening? Is this the gentrification of computing? Is this the there must be a nice way to put this, but the universality of computing now.
I mean, I think after I kind of thought about it a little bit, so, Apple gets the consumer market. This is what people want. I mean, we're geeks. We have our networks. We have our blogs. We have our sources that we go to. If I want to know what the best app is, I know to check with Leo, right? But a normal person doesn't know that, doesn't know about Lifehacker or CNET. So I can understand the need for having an app store where kind of the best and the brightest apps are featured there. I get it. And I can see it's smart, and Steve is steadfast in his position about curation and about making it very easy, and so people don't have to think. And I do think it's smart. It's not really my style. I'm not the target market for the App Store.
Well, I think there's two things about this. One is I think it's a howitzer, yet another howitzer across Google's bow with the Chrome marketplace of apps there. And that the architecture of having apps through Chrome and through an online marketplace is where Google was headed anywhere. Apple rushed and announces getting there perhaps first. The second part about it is I think you're both right, and I have the same fear and trepidation. On the other hand, as I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering whether this doesn't open up the ability for more developers to get more apps out into the computer marketplace.
It's good. It's probably good for developers. Developers like the App Store on iOS.
Exactly. And I think that before, if you wanted to create an alternative to Microsoft Word, well, Star Office did. That was about it.
Right.
And you really couldn't do it. If you wanted to create a great tax application, and people were going to buy and download and install, the CD shelf version is long gone. CompUSA, may you rest in peace. And there was no way to distribute it. So at least it is a way for developers to distribute. But like you both, I fear that when it comes to Chrome OS, Android OS, iOS, and new Mac OS, and what kind of rules they're all going to come up with, especially Apple, who knows how that gets bifurcated and messed up. And the irony, by the way, too, is that Steve is schwitzing all over Android for being split apart in various devices.
Fragmented is the word he used.
Fragmented, thank you. And in essence, now he's just fragmented Apple a little bit.
Yeah, somebody's pointing out in the chat room, look, there's app stores on Ubuntu. Ubuntu has actually, it's one of the things that Michael Rogers did back at Linux.com. He made an app store, the idea being, well, it was really hard to install apps on Linux, so why don't we make it easy? But that doesn't preclude, using RPMs or even make and build and doing your own thing. We don't know if Apple will. I worry because I do see this as a theme in Apple, which is we know best. Yes. We want to control the experience from end to end, whether it's music, video, or apps, and this is going to give a better user experience. So we're going to do it.
It's a valid approach, and it's worked for them so far. So I say go for it. It's not my style, but I can understand. I mean, it's working for them. And to their credit, they do a really good job, with the exception of a few problems, of controlling, creating a great experience.
Right. Let me
ask you both another question, if I could, real quick.
Sure.
And I watched my 14-year-old daughter teaching herself Final Cut. My son basically taught himself programming at a high end.
Wow.
Android now has, the make-it-yourself app device. If we bring that level of creativity down to more people, do you think there's ever going to be authoring tools like Final Cut, like WordPress, that come to making applications?
Well, isn't that what the Google Android app is?
Well, that's the start of that. I mean, it's awkward, but that could be something that comes and goes, and we reminisce about it in 5 years and thought that was cute. Is it possible for if you're making a video, it has like haiku or Shakespeare, right? It has limits around it. You know what it is, and you can make a tool to do that. A blog, you're writing things, you can put videos on it. Again, it has space around it. Can you ever imagine doing that with applications such that you could have, citizen programmers like crazy out there?
I think that's...
I think that's definitely possible. I mean, when the World Cup was airing, if a sports fan, could just download, an SDK and make the Vuvuzela app, that's a very, very simple app. It was of the moment. It was the kind of thing that you'd want to be able to create. It would be very easy to create and distribute. That's something that kind of anybody should be able to do. You shouldn't have to be a programmer to make an app that simple. I think, creating simple apps with kind of, the danger is that it's just going to be kind of templates. You need people who are clever and can, if there's a news item or a hook or an interesting, the true innovation is probably still going to come from programmers who can dive in a little deeper and go beyond what the scripted actions let you do. But I do think that there's definitely a market for apps, civilian programmers who can make apps that do things, especially timely things. Someone should be able to throw together a timely app and get it out in the App Store who doesn't know a whole lot of programming pretty easily.
Yeah, so where I'm headed here then is I wonder that the irony of the closed anti-democratic dictatorship of Apple is whether there's a possibility here of more of a democratization of applications. between that and Chrome with its model, that more people can get more apps to more people and can make them more easily and can get revenue for them? And do we create a new application economy here that then, it's like blogs. It encourages the creation of better and better tools. Yes, blogs are formatted, perhaps still too much, but you can do an incredible amount now with WordPress.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. I think blogs is a really good metaphor for this. You put easy blogging tools in the hands of folks who are just really smart and don't want to have to deal with writing HTML, and you get some really great blogs. And I think this can definitely happen with the App Store, and it's already happened. The distribution channel is a good thing for developers, and if we can make the tools really easy for anyone to make apps and get it into that channel, then we'd be rocking and rolling. That would be a good thing for sure.
The Apple agreement in the store, somebody just sent me a link to it, says that we reserve the right to reject any app anytime for any reason, even if it meets our standards. So they're going to tightly control this in the same way they control the iOS App Store.
Do you think Steve wishes there were a day that this kind of architecture could have existed from the beginning of Macintoshes? Yes.
Maybe, he may not have consciously known it, but I think as time goes by, this becomes more, I think Steve's gone maybe through some changes. Apple used the Next operating system, which was open and based on open source software. Darwin is open. So I think Steve showed support early on for open software. But I think as time goes by, he, for business reasons and perhaps for aesthetic reasons and maybe even for user reasons, wants to close things down and control it much, much more tightly than before. Let's play the, this is Steve Jobs. On Monday, he joined the made a rare appearance on the earnings call with analysts, jumped in to rant against Google. Listen.
And have around 90,000 apps in their app store. For comparison, Apple has activated around 275,000 iOS devices per day on average for the past 30 days, with a peak of almost 300,000 iOS devices per day on a few of those days. And Apple has 300,000 apps on its App Store.
So he's saying the numbers Google's giving out on activations, the number of apps in the Android store, don't even compare. And certainly Apple had a lot to crow about. 14.1 million units sold over the last quarter is a lot of iPhones, more than they've ever sold before. But he goes on.
Unfortunately, there is no solid data on how many Android phones are shipped each quarter. We hope that manufacturers will soon start reporting the number of Android handsets they ship each quarter. But today, that just isn't the case. Gartner reported that around...
Sounds like he's reading.
Yeah.
This was prepared.
10 million Android phones were shipped in the June quarter, and we await to see if iPhone or Android was the winner in this most recent quarter. Google loves to characterize Android as open and iOS and iPhone as closed. We find this a bit disingenuous and clouding the real difference between our two approaches. The first thing most of us think about when we hear the word open is Windows, which is available on a variety of devices.
Hold on. Whoa!
Not in anyone else's world.
See, and this is so clearly misdirection from Steve Jobs. He knows better than that. He is conflating open as an open source with something completely different. Yeah. And he ends up calling it fragmentation. Listen.
Unlike Windows, however, where most PCs have the same user interface and run the same apps, Android is very fragmented. Many Android OEMs, including the two largest, HTC and Motorola, install proprietary user interfaces to differentiate themselves from the commodity Android experience. The user's left to figure it all out. Compare this with iPhone, where every handset works the same.
This was so carefully crafted. Every word in this, now that I hear it, he's clearly reading, and every word is very carefully chosen here.
No doubt. Would you expect anything less from him?
It's double. It's double
He's
speak.
Rants, right?
Yes, but this is double speak.
Yeah.
This is open as closed. I mean, this is something very different. It almost, I have to say, it does not. It feels a little evil. Steve is really taking the Google threat quite seriously here.
Obviously, right? He wouldn't have showed up if he didn't. And I love how this kicked off this whole conversation about what is open. There was quite a few responses, right? Andy Rubin responded on Twitter. Joe Hewitt.
I loved Andy Rubin's response, which was open equals, and he shows he gives the commands to build Android.
Right.
From GitHub, from Git.
And you and I love that, right? But I think a lot of other people were like, well, I had no idea what that meant.
But that is open. The source is available. It's publishable. You can build it from source. You can modify source.
Trust it.
Yes, that's open. Windows is proprietary.
The word he used that you reminded me of that's so much a tie to my wonky media world is fragmentation. And when we got new choice in cable and VCRs, the big old media controllers, the centralized companies, whined about fragmentation. Fragmentation is just another word for choice.
Yes.
And so that's the war that Steve's having within himself, is he hates choice unless it's his choice.
This is what's very interesting. Yeah, I think this is, I don't know if this has always been, Steve's always been this way, or he's suddenly gotten some religion. He's certainly, the time is right, because with the security problems that you see on Windows, that you're absolutely going to see on Android, there is going to be a battening down of the hatches. And consumers are going to, I think, flock to this notion of choice is bad, fragmentation is bad, we want somebody to hold our hands, but that's a dictatorship. Let's listen some more.
Twitter client TwitterDeck recently launched their app for Android.
By the way, it's TweetDeck, Steve, and the CEO of TweetDeck said this is all BS.
He's so clueless about social media.
TwitterDeck. You'd think if he wrote it, he'd have written it right.
That they had to contend with more than 100 different versions of Android software on 244 different handsets. The multiple hardware and software iterations presents developers with a daunting challenge.
The CEO of TweetDeck, by the way, said, no, we actually were very happy to develop for Android. Thank you very much.
And really amazed that it worked. What they were saying was we were amazed and delighted how it worked across all.
It worked fine. Steve would have had the same rant against Windows 10 years ago. Look at all the different choices. You just want one choice, don't you? Let's continue on. I'm sorry. It's getting me angry as I listen to this.
But you're so right, Leo. It's so scripted.
It's not only scripted, it feels it's disinformation.
Yeah.
This isn't just advertising or marketing.
But this is the revolt. The irony is that he's such an old fart at such a young company age, but he's acting just like Rupert Murdoch.
It is. It strikes me as Rupert Murdoch would say stuff like this.
Oh, yeah, exactly what it is.
Well, I can't. It won't play anymore. By the way, the audio comes from businessinsider.com/SAI, the Silicon Alley Insider. Thank you.
Henry Blodgett, thank you.
Henry recorded it. And
it sounds like Harry Truman talking about the atom bomb. It has that ghostly feel. The little voice of Steve. I'm very unhappy.
What did Chris DeBona say? He said something like, I'm so glad that Steve talked about Android. I like Android a lot, too, and I talk about it a lot, too.
I'm so glad you talked. Chris is great.
Pretty telling, that he spent so much time talking about it.
Yeah. It is, isn't it?
Yeah. He's clearly threatened. But
it's almost an E-Day fix. It's like he can't get off of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I know we can. This is just amazing. It's fascinating. I have to say, it's fascinating.
Well, I think we're seeing a clash of, of cultures and economies and ways to do things.
Yeah.
And open is, and that's what Eric Schmidt always says, is that Google disrupts. And it's as simple as that. Google disrupts. That's what they do. That's what I realized as I'm writing the syllabus for my next course in our entrepreneurial journalism program. That's what I have to teach, is disruption. How do you look for the weak underbelly and go for it? And so Steve comes back once disrupted and has to defend his worldview against the disruptor.
Now, I don't think it's in his defense, but Joe Hewitt tweeted a long stream. This is all in TechCrunch. In response to all of this, he says, how can Google Android get away with the open moniker when the source isn't public until major releases and no one outside Google can check in, which is a technical thing, meaning that you cannot add to the Android source code tree unless you are approved in at Google. So it's not a fully open source project in that sense. Does it still qualify as open source, Gina, in your opinion?
I thought that Joe's points were very, very good and definitely gave me pause. I mean, the way most open source projects run is that you earn commit access to the repository regardless of what organization that you're with, right? But he's saying that only people at Google can commit, right? So any developer can submit a patch, but only someone in Google can commit it. And he's also saying that daily progress isn't public and is not available. Like the source code, the daily nightly build from last night of Android is not available. The source becomes public after each major release, and this is unusual. This is not the way most kind of in Joe's view anyway, truly open projects are run. I mean, I think that the reality is that the word open and open source represents this like really big community and concept that has lots of different factions inside of it. The Stallmanites have different definitions for free and open than the OSI, and you can run open source projects in a lot of different ways. And Google controls Android; they build Android, and but they're using kind of the open name. I do believe Android is open source. It is open, that you can download the source and compile it, as Andy said. But I thought that Joe's point was very good and kind of interesting that he was making it, right? But he was saying, look at Firefox as an example of a true open source project where people from lots of different organizations earn commit access over time. This is the way, generally a project comes up with guidelines and you have to kind of earn your stripes to get commit access, and that, everything is public. And that is kind of a core community value of an open source project, is everything is public always, right? But this is a very difficult model to have when you're building a commercial product.
Especially a cell phone product where security becomes a big issue. Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, Motorola, you got to think Motorola, HTC, and all these other companies are saying, well, you're not going to open commit access to anybody but somebody that, we vetted and approve of, or we're not going to use it. And you're not going to open it. However, Hewitt says, and I don't think he's wrong, that it's disingenuous, is the term he used, of Google to claim it is open. He says, Andy Rubin bragging about downloading a month-old code dump is not open.
Yeah. Well, let me ask it this way. Is it as open as it can be given the limitations you just had?
Well, that's the question. I think you're right.
The opener.
I think we're in a new world.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this isn't, and I bemoan it, but this is not developing for a desktop computer. This is developing for a inherently closed device because it gets on a network, and you got to get a wireless carrier to carry it. You got to get a handset carrier to manufacture it and adopt it.
But the thing is that people earn commit access because they go through thorough code review through the whole community. I mean, you just don't give out commit access randomly. You know what I mean? And so I feel like Google could probably give commit access to other people. Eventually, I don't know, maybe the project is too young. Maybe Google is super crazy about being controlled. Maybe HTC, maybe the manufacturers are pressuring them to say that only Google employees should be able to commit. Maybe Google, and this is probably surely what happens, Google probably has a whole battery of tests and checklists that they go through before they commit any sort of patch, and and people outside the organization just don't have access to those tools. I don't know, but I have to say Hewitt's points really kind of made me pause. I've been learning a lot about open source, kind of community and culture just through my own work, and it's a very interesting point.
Was Wave going to be different?
A lot of Wave's code was not public either. I mean, they were kind of releasing it in waves. Excuse the bum, but even Wave in a box, I think that they're getting there to releasing it to the point where it's all out there. But you could not, when I wrote the book, you could not download all of the code of Wave and run it, right? Because it had its tentacles into sort of internal Google systems. But it should get to that point. Wave was similar to the way Android is run. And I'm not sure how Chrome is done, actually. I'm not sure if nightly builds of Chrome are. I believe that Chrome may be a little more...
Chromium, you can get nightly builds. You can get nightly builds of Chromium.
Right, and so there's the Chromium project, and then there's Chrome, and Chrome is kind of the official Google release of Chromium. So, I'm not sure why they don't run Android the same way. But you can build secure software using the open source model. I mean, Firefox has to be secure, and they ran it kind of the open Joe Hewitt way. So I don't know that that's a reason why they would limit it.
Part of this too is if we get to, the problem with religions and purity is Well, the advantage of it is it holds somebody true to a principle. The disadvantage of it is that it, gets all snotty and kind of lost in the navel. And I don't know enough to know which this is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main point, I think Andy made it earlier, he said open is not a user feature, right? This is a developer religion fight, and I feel like in terms of the consumer, can Android claim that the label open? I would say yes, it's open enough as far as I'm concerned. The really religious open source folks might not agree with me, but Hewitt's points are good ones, I thought.
My favorite point in the Woody Allen movie Annie Hall is when he's standing in line at a movie, and some blowhard's going on and on about Marshall McLuhan. And Woody Allen says, well, I think you're all wrong, and I happen to have Marshall McLuhan right here, and I want you to know what he thinks. So I got Kevin Marks right here. And I thought, well, let's see what Kevin Marks thinks, because Kevin worked at Google. Kevin is a developer. Kevin knows open source. He's currently at British Telecom, where he's working on... By the way,
I just reread Medium's Massage this week while we wait for Kevin, and it's incredible how much he predicts the world we are in today.
He was prescient, wasn't he?
Boy, Jesus.
Kevin, I'm glad you were in the chat room, and I saw your tweet, and in the chat room, I'm glad you're listening, and I'm glad we could get you on unplanned. Thank you.
Oh, well, nice to join in. I was fascinated by Jobs' rant because he has been on both ends of this argument. If you actually look at how they work with
Darwin
initially, though.
And were you there at that time? Were you?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And we also did this with some of the QuickTime stuff we did with the streaming. We had open source streaming servers that we did it the proper way, where we were using the source code that was publicly released. And that's ideally that's what you want to do. You want to release the source code you're actually working on as the project. You want to make the commits go across the boundaries. And there are some issues with that. There are places where that's valuable and where that isn't. The other classic example where Apple has done this right is WebKit. WebKit, the foundation for the browsers on the iPhone and the Android and Safari and Chrome, was an Apple project originally, and they did this right. They made it a fully public open source project with public bug databases, commit trees, and so on. But they did have private forks that they would use to build the next version for the Safari and for the iPhone. So that's if you want a precedent for something that's done this better than Android has, that would be one. Android does it the other way around, where they do the private development, and then every time they release a new version, they push that out to the public one. So they have a Git repository, but it's not a GitHub repository. It's a repository that lives at Google, and you can pull from it, but there isn't any way to request for them to pull from you. And that would be one way they could do that, would be to bridge that to a public GitHub repository so that the public forks of it, variations could be connected.
So is Android open the way it's constructed now, do you think?
This is what Gina was saying. It's one of these fuzzy boundaries. It's an open source project. The code is available. You can build the whole thing, and that is very powerful. And I was saying in the chat room, this is the first time we've had an actual open source consumer operating system that has widespread adoption. And that is this sort of weird, powerful thing where there's this Cambrian explosion of devices appearing in China that have got Android deployed in it. But Android has two halves. There's the lower half, which is the fully open source piece that you can download and deploy that on a device, write some drivers, and then have the apps run on it. And then there's another piece that you don't get unless you make a deal with Google, and then you get the little thing on the back of your phone that says, with Google, which...
Oh, yeah.
That means that you have signed a deal with Google and done a biz dev with them. You then get the App Store, you get Gmail, you get Maps and Nav, you get a bunch of the Google specific apps that aren't open source. And in order to do that, you have to comply with Google's definition of what they consider an Android phone to be, which is a long list of must have a camera, must have this, must have that. So there's a set of things you have to do to comply with that. So that's the way they've done this. They've split it that way. They said there's an open source piece at the bottom, and then there's a piece at the top where we can still have biz dev and control and do the thing. And a lot of that is negotiating with the carriers. They want to make sure that they can release the source for the carriers. And the carriers were aware of this initially. And so they would do a fork for each new device. And for each release of Android, there would be a couple of manufacturers they work very closely with. So initially it was the G1, And then there was the release they did with the Droid, and they released it with the Nexus One. And they were saying, okay, we will iterate on this with you. You will get first stabs at it, and then we'll push it out to the world. And they're still broadly doing that model, I think. And they may change that over time. But the interesting thing for me is that there's an opportunity here for somebody to say, well, okay, we take the bottom half of here. What about this top half, the with Google half? Could somebody build something to swap in on top of that?
Well, isn't that kind of what
store and so on? Isn't
that kind of what what's his name is doing with these ROMs that he's Cyanogen? Yeah.
Not so much. No, that's more modifying the bottom half and releasing a new bottom half.
Okay.
And then you can fiddle around to bring the Google pieces on top. More interesting there is that Facebook could say, okay, we will build you the contact manager, the mail manager, all the bits on top. I mean, they'd have to license the nav part, but they could probably swap in most of the pieces that Google have there. Or Microsoft could do this. If Microsoft wanted to,
be interesting.
Mess with this, Microsoft could say, okay, we have email, we have contact management, how to do this. We could put the stuff on top, and because of the way it's constructed, Google couldn't really stop them. Or again, Apple could do this, though Apple would probably not have any interest. But if, in effect, this is what Google did with WebKit for Chrome. They took the core of the open source piece that Apple had built for their browsers and built desktop browsers on it of their own and mobile browsers on their own.
Will there ever be a mobile Linux?
Well, Android is mobile Linux. Android is Linux.
The bottom half of Android is Linux, yeah.
In terms of the way it operates, the structure. Can you fork off the open Android, as Kevin is suggesting, and make it as open as Linux is?
Yes.
Right.
It's the outer Android is under.
Which license?
Just double check the license. I think it's Apache license. Am I right there?
It's something as unrestrictive as Apache, I'm sure.
So it can be. Here's where I'm going. It can be as open as anything else. The question is whether, when Google stands as a middleman to add applications and security, are they adding sufficient value?
Right. Yeah, but the interesting thing for me is that it's already being used in this way by these hardware manufacturers around the world. But my colleague has this.
That's the fragmentation that Steve was talking about.
Yes, this is the fragmentation Steve was talking about. And the Android manufacturers are building, little tiny tablets or great big tablets or 7-inch tablets. They're charging $100 for them. They're deploying Android on them. They're a little, they're often a bit underpowered and they don't behave well. They're subject to the kind of criticisms that Steve is making of them. Potentially says, if you put too slow a processor, it won't feel right. Yeah, that's maybe potentially true. On the other hand, if you're a manufacturer who's making photo frames, you can make a photo frame that runs Android, integrates with Flickr and Facebook because it's running the Flickr and Facebook apps.
Right.
If you were some guy before who was building, the little photo frames that you buy in Walmart and that for $50 that you use to display digital photos, suddenly you've got the ability to put a much more interesting device in that domain. So I think we're going to see a lot of this weird set of applications that work there, and then the developers have to go, wait, I have to make this work on a photo frame, but half the time it will, and if you're doing something that's straightforward, that is basically a display-like app, like most of the iPhone and Android apps are, it's like pull some information from somewhere, display it on there, those will all work. If you don't do something subtle and complicated that's integrating with a subtle UI and things like that, that will be more work to port. But the easy things to port will be the ones that are these most like display-like apps or these information sharing apps.
So is Joe Hewitt right when he condemns Google and says it's disingenuous to call itself open?
It's not he works for a company that has something called the Open Graph Protocol, which is a proprietary node schema. So it's easy to sort of be snotty about open.
This is more of just the open source, nitpicking and infighting.
There's lots of definitions of open. It depends what you're trying to say.
Right, but it is not Windows.
It's not Windows.
I think we can agree that
we can all agree that it's not Windows.
No, you must know Steve fairly well, Kevin.
I'm not that well. No. I didn't work that closely to Steve, but
I'm just curious. Jeff asked this great question. Is this something Steve has been planning all along, or did he suddenly get an insight and say, forget open, we're going to go to proprietary? I have to think that the bottom line profits that iOS has brought into the company have certainly influenced him just a little bit.
I think it's product. Steve cares most of all about product and making a beautiful product.
Yeah.
And so he
doesn't care about open source politics. He doesn't
care about open source politics particularly. No. Yeah. The fact that they did the whole, that they did WebKit the way they did, which was absolutely right, it was a great thing, and it has been a massive contribution to the web. No argument with that at all. And that team there is doing sterling work, and the fact that WebKit now is an open source project by even Joe Hewitt's definition, and there's no majority of committers from any one company is a great thing for the future of the web. Right. That we've now got two competing open source browsers. Well, we've got the Mozilla browser, and we've got the WebKit browser, and then we've got the other variations on the theme from other companies. Is a great and wonderful thing. That's gave them the advanced initially. The original iPhone, that was the development method. The sort of releasing their internal OS thing came later. I'm hoping that the FaceTime thing will go the same way. I was really surprised they did a standalone FaceTime app on the Mac, and they didn't integrate it into iChat. That's just bizarre.
We had Becky grabbed Steve at the demo and asked him, and I should play the actual quote because I think I'm misquoting it, but basically asked him, Are you gonna eventually release, as you had promised, release the open? Because he says it's based on an open stack. Are you going to open it up to other developers like Skype? And he gave a denial. Basically, he said that's not what I said. So we don't know. I suspect
that. Get the video of what he did say. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get it. We have it. I have it right here. I just have to play it.
Yeah.
We can hear it directly. It was, by the way. There's some irony in this. It was via FaceTime.
Becky's trying to go over and talk to Steve Jobs. Let's listen in and see what's going on.
Forgive me.
As Becky and approaches Steve Jobs here.
I'm sorry about the speed.
You like it, Steve? Steve's making the rounds, talking to the people.
Something's going on with the chipmunk.
This is, by the way, a first for us, a FaceTime call to the Apple campus.
This is so ridiculous.
I do have FaceTime working on the desktop, by the way.
I do think that there's a question of whether the MacBook makes sense.
Hold on. She's talking to Steve.
Say that again?
Wonderful machines. I've been using one and they're great.
Do you like it a lot?
He's never said it better.
Fits in the bag and you take it with you everywhere?
You don't even need a bag. 2.3, 2.9 pounds.
Can I ask you one other question? Does the fact that we now have FaceTime just on the Mac mean we won't see APIs for other video conferencing?
We didn't say any such thing.
Okay, just checking.
We didn't say that.
There you go. I think that's our first.
I'm sorry about the chipmunk. I don't know what that's all about.
Steve Jobs sounds like this.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So that's interesting because what he said before at the iPhone launch was, this is built on an open set of protocols. We want to standardize it. These so other people can work with them.
Right.
Since then, silence.
Yep.
And other people have poked at it and they said we found a set of open standards here. It is using vanilla SIP and Stun and to do all the conferencing stuff. But there's a piece that isn't there, which is the id.apple.com thing that you do when you start it up, where it says, okay, give me your handle, and then it goes and looks the handle up in their database.
On their server, yeah.
And gets back your endpoints. Right. And they have a mapping from phone numbers, and they have a mapping from emails.
But don't they have to do that? I mean, you have to do something like that.
You have to do something like that, but that's the piece that would be really nice to do in an open way.
Right.
That, Blaine and I here are working on WebFinger. Blaine is doing huge amounts of work getting people to adopt this and build it around the world, which is designed to let you go from an email address to other services in a general open way. And it'd be great if we could use something like that for this. Apple has built another little closed thing, and they've made it very closed and not published how to do it, which means that at the moment you have to be running their software connecting to their servers over a secure connection to do this. And that's the sort of the missing registration piece. And that means that it is very smooth. It means that you can click through very quickly, but it means that is the piece that has got the lock-in baked into it. The rest of it, they've done a really good implementation of these standardized internet protocols for doing video calling.
I'm going to let you go, Kevin. Thank you for jumping in. Our Marshall McLuhan. When it comes to open,
how was the movie, Kevin?
Hey, by the way, did you see the FaceTime movie? What'd you think?
The Facebook movie.
Facebook movie.
Yeah, I read a review. I thought it wasn't as good as The Man in the White Suit. It was against geeks and against women. It was this sort of shocking thing.
I knew you said that, but I just wanted to
that was a great comparison you made. I love
really
that.
good. Yeah, the great Alec Guinness movie.
If you haven't seen that movie, that is a great geek movie. I would recommend everyone to see that.
That was an Ealing comedy, right? All those Ealing comedies.
1951 it was.
Brilliant. But he's an inventor, right?
He invents a kind of fabric that is a single molecule and therefore cannot be snapped and also repels dirt. So he makes the perfect cloth. And the way the invention works, and he's doing it for the sake of it, and everyone doesn't believe him. The actual structure of the story is so much better, and it has plausible female characters in it who actually make sense and contribute to the plot rather than just being eye candy for Alan Sorkin.
And that was 1951.
And this was 1951.
It's kind of amazing. We're regressing.
We are regressing.
What's it called? The Man in the White Suit?
Oh, yeah.
The Man in the White Suit.
Look at any Alec Guinness movie.
That and Horse's Mouth is my
Horse's Mouth. Brilliant. He's the painter. I love Alec Guinness. Any Ealing comedy, any Alec Guinness movie.
It's what you just said, Kevin, too. It's what Mark Zuckerberg said at TechCrunch, which is that
you make it for the sake of it.
You don't understand making something because you want to make it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's that's the thing Jobs has too. Jobs is making these products because he loves to make the products. But he's a very physical, hardware focused guy. The software is a means to the end. And a lot of media people project on he wants to own media. No, he wants to keep making beautiful products.
Right.
These other pieces are a means to that.
It's good to remember that. Although on the conference call he said, "You're thinking like a hardware guy. We think like software guys." So now I'm completely confused.
He'll say what makes sense.
Steve says what. He's got his own agenda.
But he's a design guy. That's the point. He's focused on integrated design.
I think that's
the thing as a whole.
Yeah, he's about making hardware that's just a canvas that the software can paint on. It's about the aesthetics.
Well, I love this word platform, and that's really the question. Are you building a platform? Or are you building an end game? If you're building a platform, it has to be open so that others can develop for it. And maybe Windows wasn't open in the open source sense, but it was an open platform, and that was the secret of the success. And the revolution, PC revolution, occurred because of that. The internet, an open platform, that was the secret of the success. The minute you close your platform, I don't know what you have, but you don't have something that really is good for the ecosystem.
Right, and that's the challenge is always balancing between the development you can do sort of sitting alone without having to talk to everyone, and the development you can do where you're building a platform that connects. And the biggest challenge is building a platform that's open enough that everyone can contribute to it.
It's the same thing.
That's what we have with the web,
Yeah, it's the same thing Facebook and Google have to deal with.
And Twitter. And Twitter are the others who are the...
Twitter is not an open platform. I mean, they have an API... And all these people built on what they thought was a platform. They're third-party Twitter clients. Sorry. Rug pulled right out from under me.
But again, it's more open than Facebook. True? It's interesting.
To some extent. Facebook are getting better at this. Facebook actually have a large installed base of apps that they were installed inside Facebook, and they've edged them off to the edge of Facebook. They've connected to the web now. Twitter... seems to be sort of edging away from that. Facebook has done a bunch of stuff recently where they have been more prone to work with the open standards stuff.
They say they want to be a platform. Yeah. Explicitly. They say, we want to be a platform.
Yeah. And
in fact, I think Zuckerberg said, we made a mistake early on with FBML. We are now moving to open APIs and open standards because we want to be a platform. FBML was a bad mistake. I thought that was very telling.
That was interesting.
He said that recently. I think that this is a natural tension, the tension to being an open platform and the tension to doing what's good for your business short term. Because what's good for your business is saying, I want it all.
Well, it isn't. I mean, but that's naturally constraining. And the challenge is looking at the longer term and saying, can I build something that will last? Can I build something that could survive this company go out of business? I used to say this at Google when we were talking about open social. Open social can survive Google going out of business because it is fully open source. It's deployed by lots of companies and so on.
Right.
And Google has got a bit bored with it now, and they're not paying as much attention. But IBM is working on it. Salesforce is working on it. A bunch of other people are working on that same code base because they found something of value in it and they keep growing it. And because it's a fully open specification and there's a big chunk of open source code there to implement it, they can do that. And that's what makes it there. This was the
I mean, I guess you could say that for iOS too. 300,000 apps. It must be a platform.
Yeah, no, sure. It is a platform, but it has a bunch of lock-in there that means Apple can change their mind on you.
They can pull the rug out for you.
Explicit in the short term by throwing your app out, but in the longer term, they can do it by not developing it anymore or deprecating it. Jobs stood up at D and said we were right to kill HyperCard. Well, he can say that it was, and the rest of us out here were using HyperCard. We're like, dying. Wait, no,
dying. We interviewed Woz on Wednesday, and I asked him what was the most important technological invention of his era. He said HyperCard. Yeah. Not the Apple II, not the Mac, HyperCard, because it let people write their own stuff.
Right. Yeah.
It's what you were talking about right there, Jeff. It was something that made it easy to develop.
It's a combination of tools, distribution, and monetization.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, monetization for HyperCard was never that easy, but yeah. I
remember there were some little tiny things at the time.
It never had a way to package your stuff and distribute it.
We had to do commercial CD-ROM publishing. Now, I sold a bunch of those in the 90s. They worked and people would buy them, but it was expensive CDs in shops type publishing. It wasn't web distribution.
I always love getting Kevin on. Gets your mind going here. Thank you, Kevin Marks. Ribbit.com for British Telecom. We're going to take a break, come back with more of This Week in Google. Thanks, Kevin. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. We have such smart people who are listening and following us, and I love it. They tweet and they chat and they say, let me on, I want to talk.
It's a privilege.
More with Gina and Jeff in just a bit. I want to talk about Carbonite.com. It's a privilege to talk about them. I'm very happy that if we didn't have the sponsors we do on these shows, we would not be able to do these shows. And companies like Carbonite say, hey, we love supporting what you're doing. And I say this back to them, we feel like you have a product that our audience wants to hear about, that is a great product that really solves a problem, a need we all have for backup, reliable backup, and not just backup to an external drive next to your computer, because that's not really a backup. If the worst happens, a fire, a flood, or whatever, you've lost it. It's backup to the cloud where it's secure. You can get it anytime from any computer, anywhere you can get online. You can they have free iPhone and BlackBerry apps too. You can get your data from that. And it's automatic, so you don't have to think, oh, did I back up this week? No, it's always backing up. As long as you're online, it's always backing up. And because it uses SSL, even if you're at an open access spot, it doesn't matter. Your backup is secure. It's safe. You use AES 256 if you want to really make it private. I can go on and on. I want you to try it free for 2 weeks, 14 days. Go to Carbonite.com. Use the offer code TWIG. You can see how it works. If it fits your needs, and I think it will, then you can buy it and get 2 months free using the offer code TWIG. It's only $55 a year, PC or Mac. It's designed for one machine, one internal drive, or the internal drive on one machine. They do have a Carbonite Pro that is a little different. It's based on the amount of storage, but I think for the end user, this is a great solution because you don't have to think, do I have a terabyte? Do I have 2 terabytes? It just backs it up. $55. That's it. Carbonite.com. Use the offer code TWIG. If you decide to buy it, use the offer code TWIG to get 2 months free. Carbonite. You got to back it up to get it back, so do it right. With Carbonite. Okay. Somebody, Reverb Mike's in our chat room. He says he has 2 terabytes on Carbonite. That's holy cow. That's a lot.
That's a lot of data.
There are other stories besides this one. I mean, we could go on. I love this story, and I'm sure we will go on. Verizon is going to be the first to have the Samsung Galaxy Tabs. Jeff, you say you want one of these.
I want one Wi-Fi. I don't want to get another damned phone company telco set of handcuffs.
It'll be $5.99 on Verizon, 7 inches, even though Steve Jobs says that's too small, Jeff.
Size matters, says Steve.
Steve says do the math. That's 45% of the iPad. That's too small. We'll see. He even said, even Google says don't use Froyo on a tablet. Use Gingerbread, but this is going to come out with Froyo 2.2 on it. It'll be a 1 gigahertz Hummingbird processor, 16:9 aspect ratio. I kind of like the way the screen looks. 7 inches. And a front and rear facing camera.
Bingo.
But no FaceTime.
Yeah, so the great, how long is it going to take for the camera to finally get on the iPad, by the way?
Yeah.
Well, next year. Face pads on the laptop.
Next year. Verizon's going to throw in its Vcast, its music, and Song ID VZ Navigator, which you don't need because Android's got it. Slacker Radio, Kindle for Android, which you don't need because you could download it. Blockbuster On Demand, which I wish I could erase. Is Blockbuster even in business still?
Bankrupt, but barely.
I thought they were...
They're bankrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Give me an application so I can access a bankrupt company's database.
Well, the deal's worse than what Verizon's doing with the iPad, where you get the iPad plus the MiFi for a better deal.
A locked down MiFi, and it's the same price as buying a 3G iPad.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. This is contract free, by the way, $5.99. 3G data plans start at $20 per month for a gigabyte. That's a new pricing. A gig's probably enough. I'll buy one immediately. It'll be available November 8th. Same time that the Windows, or I'm sorry, November 11th, 3 days after Windows Phone becomes available on AT&T.
Oh, I'm counting the days for that.
Now, I just saw a story that MSNBC is confirming the Verizon iPhone, that Apple is confirming the Verizon iPhone.
How many times has that been confirmed?
This is the first time from Apple, I guess. I don't know. Moving on. We're just going to click right through these because we're running out of time here. Did you see the kind of like this chart of the day? This is from Silicon Alley Insider. I guess it's another Henry Blodgett. No, it's Jay Yarrow for SAI. Google's profit by segment. Search, oops, let's get the right screen here. Search 95%. All the rest 5%. And I really particularly liked the reinvention of this graph done by Gizmodo. Search 95%, and it looks like a Pac-Man about to eat Bing.
Well, it used to be 98%, so it's an improvement.
It's down. That's $3 billion.
Yeah.
Shot.
It kind of reminds you, though, with all the products that Google has, that's still the one that's paying the bills.
Search company. But, you know, I think about it with my own little business that I don't want to admit it, but this is still a podcast business. Almost all the money we make, probably on the order of 95%, is from downloadable audio. So why do I build a video studio and put all these cameras up and go to all the trouble to put out video? Well, you got to bet on the future. You got to go to the kind of say
Absolutely.
What's the next thing. You can't do this. And mobile is Google has dominant market position in not just search, but in mobile, in Android, in a lot of things. So they've got some good investments, even if they aren't yet a big part of the profit picture.
Well, I'll ruin my numbers of the week right here and now.
No, you don't have to. Save them.
All right.
They're coming in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Google says we're not going to do, I thought they already said this, but they now, I guess it's official according to the Search Engine Journal, we're not going to do any more Wi-Fi data collection in our Street View cars. No plans to resume it. This is in response, of course, to the leak of information and the Germans getting all upset.
They did a whole other story now as if it was new, declaring that they'd gotten personal information. There was no news in it at all. The Germans just went on the attack again. Oh, those Germans.
Your friends.
Yeah.
Your friends in Germany do not know when to stop. Dead Sea Scrolls coming to your couch thanks to Google. Is this Google Books? Google really old books?
God's the only person who won't sue him.
They finally figured out. Well, we found a publisher that won't sue us. The Israeli Antiquities Authorities teamed up with Google to digitize the Dead Sea Scrolls and make them accessible to anyone with an internet connection. At a press briefing in Israel, the IAA's Penina Shore talked about how the Google deal will help preserve the scrolls. From the minute all of this will go online, there'll be no need to expose the scrolls anymore. And I didn't know they were exposing the scrolls. And anyone in his office or on his couch will be able to see it. There's a movement to do this with artworks too, isn't there? Where you can get like these super, gigapixel images of the Sistine Chapel. I hope that they don't just like start putting all this stuff in climate sealed rooms and.
Well, that's where Bill Gates was going a long time ago, right?
That's right.
He has the
cave.
video frames in his house.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he has a cave where he's buying all these collections, like the Bettman Archive, and sticking them in a cave, and literally they're in like an old salt mine, and then he's digitizing them so that you don't need them ever again.
So Gates is buying a cave and Google is digitizing them and putting them online. Okay, all right.
and they run into the Chilean miners while they're down there. Yeah.
These guys must know something. Yeah, they must know something. All right.
I kind of love they do this kind of stuff. You know, it's not quite in the 95% revenue source, but it's important kind of to the world. It aligns with their mission to digitize the world's information. It makes sense. It's a good PR opportunity for them to say, hey, look, the Dead Sea Scrolls are live on your computer.
All right, here's a I don't know what this is. I'm just going to play it because I'm running through the stuff real quickly. This is some.
Oh, yeah.
You saw this? You know what this is? You want to set this up? Do we need to set this up? You just play it.
I'll do a little setup. There's this whole video campaign called It Gets Better, where gay, lesbian, transgender, queer people kind of talk to gay youth in the light of sort of the recent suicides about how things get better.
And so I should point out, because it's Spirit Day, Gina and I are both wearing purple.
Yeah, wearing purple.
And I think Jeff's wearing purple socks.
Jeff is wearing purple socks.
He didn't get the memo. So this is Google employees saying it gets better.
Exactly.
I think this is great. Let's play a little bit of this, and then we'll get to our picks, tips. This is based on that Google search ad, right, that we saw in the Super Bowl.
Similar.
Hi, my name is Cynthia. I work in the Strategic Partnerships Development team at Google.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm a system administrator at Google.
I'm Scotty. I work at Google. I'm from the Chicago suburbs.
My name is Randy Reyes. I grew up here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I currently work at Google.
I remember when I was younger, I had 4 brothers, which it's not easy to be gay when you have 4 brothers because there's like so much masculinity in the house. I remember sitting in my bedroom when I was younger, laying on my bed and just feeling this dread in my chest, like knowing someday I have to tell my family or I have to tell somebody. And that alone was enough to terrify me.
I grew up at the dinner table hearing conversations about how gay people should die of AIDS, how gay people were less than, straight people, and it really caused me to feel very safe at home. And at the same time, I didn't feel very safe at school either.
Then I went to a public middle school and high school, and it was full of jocks, and I didn't know any.
I'll rest this to you. It's on YouTube. It's pretty long. It's 7 minutes and 30 seconds, and we only have 5 minutes left in the show. But that's really great. I'm glad. Now this is actually published not on Google's. It's on YouTube, but it's in Better in Tech. Is the URL youtube.com/Better in Tech if you want to.
It's pretty amazing that the company sanctioned this. I mean, it's a pretty disarming video. They've always been pretty kind of come out in support of the gay and lesbian community, but really great video. One of the best ones I've seen. A lot of these It Gets Better videos are a little cringeworthy, but that one is really top.
It's powerful. It's really good. YouTube leanback. I pre-ordered the Logitech review, and they say it's on its way. Have you gotten yours yet? Either one? No.
I went to Best Buy and said, "Please give me the demo unit," and they didn't have it yet. So I'm gonna go. I want to try it out. They kind of looked at me like, "Oh, I was a little. I must have been like, I need the Google TV."
I'm jonesing, man. I'm jonesing.
And they gave me the whole Samsung demo, and I was like, "Yeah, no. I want the Google TV.
I don't want the Samsung. I want the Google." Samsung's done its own thing. By the way, Apple did say on Monday 250,000 Apple TVs. The new Apple TVs has a lot. So there's definitely a market for this stuff. We'll see. YouTube Leanback has launched on Google TV. You may have seen it in beta. The whole idea is you watch YouTube just like we just did. Sit back with your arms back and your feet up on the table, and you can enjoy it in a lean back way. YouTube.com/leanback. Videos start playing immediately, are always presented in full screen and HD, and you can browse using the arrow key. So the whole idea is you're watching it on your big screen, not on your computer anymore. And Leanback will be on Google TV. So that's very, very, actually it's great for people who publish on YouTube because now you're really at a parity with a network.
Yeah, you get it in people's living rooms.
Yeah,
distribution, just like we were talking about.
Yep. And free because Google pays the bill.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube.com/leanback if you want to know.
And if they can start monetizing it, that's the other. You got the tools. You got the. Well, I think I'm getting pennies now. I have a video of the people who surf in Munich, in the middle of Munich. There's a surf thing that you can buy that happened by accident, and I got the invitation. You can monetize this video, says Google. So I said sure, and now there's ads appearing on it, and I'll make 3 cents.
So what do you make, Jeff, of the Wall Street Journal, which has really been, banging the gong on privacy lately? They talked about cookies and so forth. And just this week, they say Facebook, which, by the way, I don't know, did they disclaim this anywhere, is a competitor to
They did not.
News Corp's MySpace. Facebook, third-party applications leak your information. Facebook said, yeah, that's a bug. We're going to fix it. It's not a good thing. But it seems to me that the information is leaking, which is already public. Your ID comes through.
It was your name.
It's your name.
Your ID number, which could lead to your name. Big deal.
It's like, what is the Journal worried about? What is going on here?
I happened to see the reporter who started this series last night at an event at Columbia, and I lost it with her and used words I won't use on your clean air.
Really?
Yeah, I just had it. I think it's irresponsible, and it's trying to ruin the internet. And she said, well, Rupert Murdoch never called me. Well, of course not. You're being used. And it fits into a strategy of the company. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I keep on saying that. But in this case, that's what's happening, is that Murdoch is giving up on digital advertising. And so now he's trying to ruin it for everybody else. I'm sorry, but it's that simple. This story was incredibly irresponsible. All it did was put out the IDs. It was written in pure tabloid form. I know, because I'm a tabloid guy. I know all the tricks. So day 2, there was the Congress people are looking into this. Sorry, there's my lights.
It's sensationalistic.
Oh, absolutely. And the real problem here is that it has no context whatsoever.
Yeah,
so
it scares middle America. They go...
So now go to News America, which is a company owned by Murdoch and News Corp that does coupons and online coupons, and it does all kinds of incredible by-name targeting. Go to another company called Axiom, which has been in the database business for the publishing and marketing business for decades. And I went on there just as a demo, and just to be as creepy as I could be, I put together a list of women 18 to 25 who are single, who live in my zip code, who have at least a high school education, because I have standards, and hit the button, and I could harass every one of them for $60.
Wow.
That's been going on for years and years and years and years. So the irony of this is that Facebook's standards on personally identifiable information are way higher than old media's, like the Wall Street friggin' Journal. And no one, Henry Blodgett and I went back and forth because he was kind of buying he was drinking the Kool-Aid of it. And I said, stop. We need this context. We need other reports. News Corp is not reporting on its own subsidiaries, on its own methods.
Even the Journal does considerable cookie setting.
Of course they do. And they have your PII. They have your name and address and credit card number and phone number.
Yeah.
And though they don't put all of that out to third parties, they do put data out to third parties, as does the New York Times, as does most every other site out there. And what Esther Dyson said in Twitter, which I think is true too, is that part of the problem, as the whole industry now, is that you kind of have to police your third parties, and no one does. So you put up an ad network, whether you're Facebook or whether you're the Wall Street Journal or anybody else, you put up an ad network and they have their own rules and they aren't your rules, and you disclose that you have a third party and then you wash your hands of it. And so that's part of the problem is that I think this was Rap Leaf. It was fairly accidental. They, as far as I could see it. Again, it was a higher standard in the first place. It was broken. Everybody said it was broken. It wasn't just Facebook's fault. It's also part of the architecture of the web and how information gets passed in URLs. And they're fixing it. And so it wasn't a big scandal, but that's what's so irresponsible about the Wall Street Journal, is that they're trying to make it look like a scandal, and that's where the story lies. And why are they doing that? Because they're leaving advertising behind, and they're going to hurt it for everybody else. And if we get FTC regulation, rant almost over. If we get FTC regulation of things like cookies, we're going to devalue the entire internet overnight and hurt everyone who's trying to make money on this, including my pennies on my little Munich surfing video.
So I like this because I kind of said, oh, well, maybe it's anti-competitive because they own MySpace. No. It's against the
web. Much bigger than that.
They want to kill the web.
Yes.
They want to kill the technologies that power the web.
They put the Times of London and now the News of the World, a fine, upstanding publication that has been bugging the phone conversations of the royals. And next, The Sun, a fine, upstanding publication that has bare breasts on page 3.
Page 3, girls, yeah.
And they're going to put that, women, say please, women. And
thank you.
They are women,
yes.
actually. I can tell.
They absolutely are. There's the proof.
Yep.
They're going to put all this behind paywalls, along with the Wall Street Journal, and paywalls that are more impenetrable than the journals, by the way. And they're giving up on advertising, and this is their shtick. And they're trying to draw other publishers into this. He was going to start an aggregator that was going to be a pay aggregator, and he'd share revenue, basically. But he couldn't do it. No one would salute. No one's going along with the Pied Piper here.
Yeah.
And it's become a religion, and it's become dangerous. And my friends in media need to expose what Murdoch thinks he's exposing and isn't. Sorry, the rant continued.
No, you're right to rant about this, and I unfortunately I don't think that the truth is coming out. So you're absolutely right to rant about.
Well, and
this.
it means that it's part of the problem. Gina said long ago, and I love that is the hackers go around, and in our culture we just kind of say, oh, that sucks, and we ignore it when we should be reacting to it with facts.
Yep. I also have a feeling that we ain't seen the end of this, that as these old media companies get cornered, they're going to fight dirtier and dirtier and dirtier.
That's precisely what's happening. So you see in Germany, that's when they're going after trying to extend copyright even more and hurt fair use. And I just filed a friend of the court brief today to the Supreme Court of Canada. Ain't that cool? In a case where media companies, in this case, in their interest, are trying to come to the defense of a guy who was found liable for something he linked to. If we end up making the link, put a chill on the link, we've killed the entire infrastructure of the web. So there's a lot of people who can do a lot of really damaging, stupid things to our world, and we got to stand up, people. Bill of Rights for cyberspace. Thank you.
We've got John Perry
Links and
Barlow
cookies, for
coming
sure.
on at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific this afternoon. And the very first thing I'm going to do just for you, Jeff Jarvis, is have him do a dramatic reading of the Internet Bill of Rights.
Yay.
And I presume he will be willing to. I'll print him out for him in case he doesn't have a copy to hand. I just think what happens is you push the knowledgeable users underground, and then you essentially you're going to create an underground of open with as a substrate underneath this closed.
Well, it's a metaphor for everything we talked about at the beginning of the show, right? The open web and the closed web.
Yes.
Transparent and opaque. And these are choices that we are making for a new culture, a new world. The CTO of the Veterans Administration calls it the 8th continent. We are now deciding what this culture is going to be operating like, and we're letting it go to old defaults.
You know what saddens me is, I'm watching the chat room as we're during Mac Break Weeklies. I'm talking about the fact that this is a bad trend towards a closed ecosystem, and they're going, "Oh, you sound like such an old man." You say there's a great comic, XKCD comic, in I'll see if I can find it, in which the open source hacker guy is saying, "Well, I'm fighting to keep this stuff open for you." And but I like it closed. I like it. It's good. And then of course it closes in on the normal guy, and the hacker said, "I told you, we're fighting for you, baby. You gotta understand. It feels good now, but it's not gonna feel good in the long run."
So what are we gonna do about it? Damn it!
Well, I'm doing everything I can on this network to raise people's awareness.
You are.
Unfortunately, the people who watch this are probably already aware.
Yeah, we all have the same hymnal.
Yeah, we're preaching the choir.
Preaching the choir.
Yeah. So
we need Save the Link and Save Cookies T-shirts. No, but Jeff, you really are doing them a lot. I mean, you're really getting out there. And did you say you filed with the Supreme Court in Canada?
They came to me on this case, and because I write about the link economy and the value of the link, and these lawyers recognized, they were smart enough to realize that what could happen here is the degradation of the value of the link. And so I gave them a bunch of my stuff, and I filed this little affidavit, and I amended what they wrote for me. They interviewed me, then wrote it, and they used words like "verily," and so I love it. And so I added something in there about how doing this to the link would put a chill on free speech, and they said, "Oh no, sorry, that would be very cheeky to say to the Supreme Court of Canada." I said, "I'm American, of course I'm cheeky." Cheeky.
We're out of East. This is the XKCD cartoon, 2003. Did you get my essay? Yeah, it was good, but it was a doc. You really should use a more open. Oh, give it a rest already. Maybe we just want to live our lives and use software that works, not get wrapped up in your stupid nerd turf wars. I just want people to care about infrastructures we're building. No, you just want to feel smugly superior. You have no sense of perspective and are probably autistic. Flash forward 7 years later, 2010. Oh my God, we handed control of our social world to Facebook and they're doing evil stuff. Do you see this? It's the world's tiniest open source violin. Says it all right there.
Love XKCD.
I do too.
The smallest open source violin. I love that.
All right. Let's take a break. We come back. We're going to have Gina's tip, Jeff's number. I saved it for you, Jeff.
Thank you. You did.
And my tool.
God bless you.
But first, let me talk a little bit about Ford and the Ford Motor Company. They're supporting the show. See, there is still hope. One of the great American industrial giants, and they are moving forward with a great set of products, including the new Ford Fiesta. With an EPA estimated 40 miles per gallon highway, no other compact car is more fuel efficient. And it's not just economy of fuel. The Fiesta is awesome. You may remember we went out to the Rouge plant, I guess that was in July, to visit where they've been making cars since Henry Ford's day. He built it in the 30s. The idea... Actually, earlier than that, I think the 20s, the idea was raw materials come in and a car comes out the other end. I mean, incredibly vertically integrated, like they talk about now, a mile and 3/4 long, half a mile wide. And Ford is now, they're putting on the rooftops, green rooftops, which keep the facility cooler in the summer. They absorb water, reduce energy costs, of course, cut CO2 and generate oxygen. Ford's commitment to the environment is not only in the facilities, the cars too, the EcoBoost V6 engine, incredible 365 horsepower engine that saves gas, standard in the Taurus SHO with the power of a V8, the 2011 Ford Fiesta, which is the most fuel-efficient compact car on the road today. I'm really pleased to see what Ford's doing, and I invite you to reward them by at least going to a Ford dealer near you, trying out the Ford Fiesta, or the Edge. Take a look at the Sync, which is the incredible hands-free in-car communications and connectivity. It's a 21st century vehicle. Give it a try. The Ford Fiesta. Drive one at a Ford dealer near you. And thank you, Ford. A real tip of the hat. I think what Alan Mullally and the gang are doing there is just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. Now time. Gina Trapani for your tip of the week.
Quick tip. If you are logged into Facebook, but you don't love going to sites like Yelp or Lifehacker or different places where it says, your friend Leo has liked this. Like this here. If that kind of creeps you out a little bit, there is a Google Chrome extension. It is called Facebook Disconnect. And I think this is kind of funny. This extension was developed by an engineer at Google who works on the Chromium project, but this extension doesn't have anything to do with Google. It's not endorsed by Google.
But the like button goes away, the Facebook Connect button, everything, all of that stuff goes away?
All that stuff goes away. So it doesn't say, so it blocks the flow of traffic from third-party websites to Facebook. So it's really kind of a privacy protector. So if someone has a direct link to Facebook, you will still see that. It blocks those JavaScript embeds that list your friends' faces and say they like this, or instant personalization is turned on. So once you install it, and Leo's doing that right now, if you go to sites that have that Facebook integration, you won't see it.
Well, let me try it now. I love it.
You could try going
to
on
Yelp.com. I hate it when I go to Yelp and it says, "Hey Leo, how you doing? Your friends." Yeah. Oh, nothing up at the top. I love it. It's gone.
Nothing. Kind of nice. So it's kind of like a condom for Facebook.
It does work on Chrome.
And it's a Chrome extension. I really didn't plan to say that, and I kind of regretting that I did.
Think of it as a latex sheath to protect you.
It gets Facebook out of all your other third-party sites that you'd like to keep your activity there private. Thank you very much.
Sure, that's what it is.
And I'm going to stop blushing now, and you can do
I'll continue with Gina. I'll keep it going. I just saw a tweet that the person doing the Canadian suit or involved is named John Newton, and it's the P2P net. Is his case. And so he just tweeted, "Oh, we're talking about his case on there." And I look at his feed and I see this from 4 hours ago. Google Android, a little bit open source, quote, sort of like a partial circumcision. So there, Gina, that's the theme of the day.
There you go. Well, when Jeff's on the show, it always is.
It's always about penises when Jeff's on the show. And your number of the week, and it better not be 9.
Thank you very much, boss. So Google announces $1 billion annualized in mobile revenue.
Wow.
Which goes back to your chart before that says that there are new things growing here. Also, TechCrunch did a calculation and tried to figure out Google's display revenue versus search revenue. and calculates it at about 2.5 billion and says that it's about to probably surpass Yahoo with that. Yahoo, mind you, they gave up on search to concentrate on display. And so if you add that up, that's 3.5 billion of non-search out of about 32 billion annualized in total revenue. So, they went from 2% non-search to 5% non-search to 10% non-search in about a year.
Wow.
Ain't bad.
Ain't bad. We'll take it.
There's a reason the stock's over $600. Thank you very much.
My tool is not a tool. It is a way for you to kill your productivity. If this sounds familiar, then you've already been captured by the angry birds.
Green swines. You took my eggs.
Those horrible pigs have stolen your eggs. This is a app that has been huge on iPad and iPhone, and it is finally available now. It has been available in beta for some time, but is finally available in its full version and free, I might add.
Oh, nice one.
Get those pigs. Come on. Come on. I'm after you, pigs. It is ad-supported. They have AdMob ads in it, so you don't have to pay for it. Yes! Dead pigs. I love them. The birds are cheering, by the way. It is
I love the cheering birds.
It is a killer application, which you're just going to absolutely love. Free on Android now, and it is every bit as good. It's just as complete as the iPhone and iPad version. And they really did a nice job. The company, Rovio, is in Finland. It's distributed by a company called Chill and Go, which just got purchased by Electronic Arts for some ungodly amount of money.
$20 million.
Yeah, but apparently they didn't get Angry Birds, so... Yeah, I don't know what they got. They got, I don't know what they got.
More than anything, Angry Birds makes me want an Android tablet because it's so much better on a big screen,
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great?
But is 7 inches enough, Gina, not to continue our thing?
Well, this is a 4.3-inch screen. I think it's pretty good. It's nice to have an Angry Bird in my pocket,
That's true. That's true.
Gina Trapani, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get anything done now for the rest of the day. Gina Trapani is a blogger. But boy, that just really doesn't say it all. She started Lifehacker. She's at smarterware.org. She also writes for Fast Company. Go to fastcompany.com/worksmart for her new Work Smart series. And she's also working on that great program. What is it called now?
Think Up.
Think Up.
Yeah, beta 3 out this week.
Yay.
We're marching towards 1.1.
Yeah, where do we go if we want to know more?
ThinkUpApp.com.
Very cool. ThinkUpApp.com.
Jeff, I'm glad to be back.
Jeff, it's so good to have you back, Jeff. Jarvis is here. He's also from the City University of New York, where he teaches journalism and excoriates the Wall Street journalism.
Or some would say ruins journalism, but what the heck.
He's also the author of a fantastic book, which every bookshelf should have, called What Would Google Do? His blog is at buzzmachine.com. Thanks for being here, both of you. Thank you to Kevin Marks. My Marshall McLuhan, he came in to rescue us in the conversation about open. Kevin is at ribbit.com. Thank you all for being here. We love doing this show, and we'll see you back here. We do it live every Wednesday. Normally, if we're not delayed by an Apple announcement, at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UT. No, I'm sorry. 1 p.m. is 13 plus 7, 2000 UTC at live.twit.tv. Chat with us at irc.twit.tv, but you can always get the show after the fact at youtube.com/twit. Or subscribe at twit.tv/TWIG. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on This Week in Google.